What's up, people? I don't know what the fuck happened yesterday, but I did upload that Buddhism video because I got a notification from somebody that says you owe us a video, and I was like, holy shit, that fucking shit was cleared it. Watched like 6 hours ago. I don't know if it was a notification issue or whatever the fuck, but anywho, remember that shit I was telling you about Bic lighters? Yeah, that shit just happened to me. And I didn't have the backup. Ah, fuck, I wish I could just light Gumby on fire. But what would be the point in that? Alright, so this is going to be another, not really debate prep video, but more of like a debate prep video. No, it's going to be a pep rally, motherfuckers. What I figured I'd do in this is I would take what is generally considered currently to be the weakest argument for God, that being the ontological argument, in order to try to steelman it. And the funny thing about the arguments for God is that they fall in and out of favor. So like, for example, the argument from design was always, when I was coming up, philosophically, theologically, that was always considered to be one of the weaker of the arguments. But that argument actually, I believe, convinced Antony Flew, one of the greatest atheists of the previous generation, I'll say, to become a deist. So it fell back into favor. I always thought the worst was the moral argument, but the moral argument, that seems to be, gaining ground. It's like some will go up, some will go down. Everybody always admits, though, that the cosmologicals are the best. I think that my approach is going to be somewhat cosmological. Again. Oh, and by the way, I have to give a really big fucking apology to Kyle at the Non Sequitur show, because I kept calling him Keith. And I think the reason I did that, and the reason I did it at the time, was because Kyle Kolinsky is a guy that he goes by Secular Talk on YouTube. He's a political guy affiliated with the Young Turks. Fucking sharp as a razor blade. I didn't want to get this dude confused with him, so I just manufactured a name from Voltron. But hey, at least he was in charge of the Black Line, if you know what I'm saying. There's no racism in that whatsoever, so don't, yeah. Alright, so 3.5 minutes in. Steelman, the ontological argument. Now, for those of you unfamiliar, I'll give you I promise, this is going to be quick, other than me saying it's going to be quick, in which case it's not quick because I keep talking about how quick it's going to be, and then it ends up not being quick because I kept talking. You get the point. The idea here is this, is that you could say that the most perfect of all perfections is to exist. So the most perfect being must exist. Hence God. I know that sounds silly. I maybe did I leave a middle part out there? I don't fucking know if I did. Now, generally, when this is brought up, the immediate go-to is Kant. When Kant said, existence is not a predicate. Because if you conceive of, let's say, a unicorn, you're conceiving of an existing unicorn. You're not conceiving of a non-existing unicorn, because such a thing would be indistinguishable from every other thing that does not exist. So existence is not a predicate. So normally this is how it goes. It goes 1, 2, boom, we're done. There have been some reformulations of this. Recently, relatively recently, I would say within the past 15, 20 years, maybe even longer ago than that, in which something called modal logic was used. And I'm thinking of Alvin Plantinga and his proof. And I think, did Richard Swinburne use a similar approach? I'm not sure. Maybe he went at something from a different angle. But so this is the reformulation of the ontological has been getting a push, but it hasn't really, I mean, when I say a push, I mean a push from within the apologetics community. But I don't think it's ever going to catch on, because it's something so fucking subtle. This is the one argument that really relies on complete and utter subtlety to get over, to actually work. So, that having been said, and me not wanting to bore you with the difference between S4 and S5 semantics within modal logic. Which, okay, look, here's how this shit works. All right. See, this is why I go back to like fucking the Trinity I was describing in my video when I was talking about logic, mathematics, and set theory. Not necessarily in that order. It was one video, but I mean, I didn't. You get my point. There's something called modal logic, and that is the logic of necessity and possibility. So if we say, for example, if I say it is necessary that n, therefore n. The reason why is because if n is necessary, then n must exist. Well, what they do is, and it's very similar to what they do with this transfinite analysis, is they say, well, if n is necessary, is n necessarily necessary? I'm not shitting you. They do this. And then they say, just go look it up. You'll laugh your ass off if you have a sense of humor with regard to, like, especially if you've watched any of my infinity videos where I'm just totally critical of transfinite analysis. But so they'll sneak these things in and they'll say, if it's necessary that it's possible that it's necessary that Q, then Q in all possible worlds, or some shit like that. And again, we're dealing with what's called possible world semantics. This is something that's normally done within my school, the analytical school of modern philosophy, is that you envision a set of all possible worlds, and then you generalize over that set, or you will identify subsets of that set, etc., et fucking cetera, right? But I think if I was to reformulate the argument, I don't know necessarily that I would go that route. Because in a lot of ways, I mean, and there are different types of logic. There are so many different types of logic. Everybody thinks logic's logic. No, actually it's not. There are very different types of logic dealing with very specific types of statements. Logic is always predicated on statements, or more properly, conjunctions of statements. So if I make a series of statements together, what can I infer? If I take statement A as true and statement B is true, what can I infer about statement C? And I really don't think that you need to go to that length. You'll have to forgive me there. I take these long pauses. I just try to stretch it out. I'm mandated. Well, it's actually not by the. It's not by the day. It's by the period, whatever the period is. I think that's 28 and some change for most normal women. But so yeah. Let me try to steelman the ontological argument, because I do think it is the weakest of the arguments. You gotta give me a second. Let me vote. Promise. It's gonna be real quick. It's gonna be like a vote for Trump. Oh, fuck. God damn it. I don't even think I'm messy with my shit. Don't worry. I'll slide it all back over eventually. So what is the general thrust of this argument here? Well, I think here's what it has to do with, and this is... Funny thing is, I just dropped my kid off at the school bus, and I was walking back, and I was like, what would be hard for me to do? And now, 12 minutes in, I'm like, this is going to be, because it's totally off the cuff. It's nothing prepared. And that's the way I roll, and this is what's going to be funny, because evidently one of the co-hosts of the Non Sequitur show, a guy named Steve, he has a bone to pick with my mathematical proof for the existence of God video. And the thing about that is that I would say 99% of what I do on YouTube is very informal, and it's not rigorous. Don't get me wrong, I'm not fucking like sitting here lying to anybody. And when I quote sources, or I quote them from memory. If I say, and I say go Google that shit. There've been very few times when I've actually pulled this, that, or the other fucking thing up. That's actually one of the reasons I was hesitant to upload my Buddhism video, is just because I think that there were some things that I said in there in a way that, I'm not going to say I got it wrong, but it's more like I didn't say it precisely the way it should have been said. And it could lead to some kind of misunderstanding. But I'm just trying to figure out how long I can fucking stall having to do this. Okay. So we can grant that within reality, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to at least mix this a little bit with cosmology. I can't do it purely linguistically. I think the fallacy of that's already been exposed. But if we look out at reality, we can see that there are gradations of optimalization, if you will. So certain things are more optimal than others, right? So I don't know. Being LeBron James is probably optimal to the sport of basketball, at least currently. I don't know. That was a weak example. But you could say that optimally, and again, even that. Now, when I start reflecting on that's kind of a problematic term, because you could say, well, what's the optimal amount of children to have? Well, it depends on a lot of shit, right? But at least we understand what the meaning of the word is, optimal. Optimal would be like the best of all possible worlds. Oh, fuck, here I go. Oh, shit, here I go. Possible world semantics. I don't know. This is flying totally off the cuff. This is asking me to defend something that just to me. Gotta steelman it, bro. Gotta steelman it. Alright, so we can at least understand what that word means. And what that word means is that... Oh, man. How do I fucking do this? I might give up on this video, but I'll probably still upload it. Just for the humor of me fucking giving up on a video in the middle of a goddamn video. But, so we could say that there is, for any given attribute, there is an optimalization of that attribute. And we could even confine that. We could say that's within, some kind of a given bound. So like, take a predator-prey relation within nature. What is the optimal amount of predation or successful kills? Well, that depends. That depends on the, prey population. It depends on the predator population. It depends on the health of the species. It depends on the biodiversity. It depends on a whole fucking lot of things. Okay, so I'll grant that. But even given all that granting, even saying that it, you have to look at it from, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, we can still understand the meaning of the word optimal. We know what that word means. You could probably say, well, in reality, in the world we inhabit, there is no optimal state of affairs. There is no optimal world. And that argument, yeah, that's pretty strong. Fuck, I'll even grant it. But it doesn't have to exist in the world that we inhabit. It only has to exist in our imagination. Because once we accept that there is the possibility of an optimal state of affairs, holy shit, here I'm going S4, S5. I didn't think I could do this without fucking modal logic. I could be fucking wrong, right? Holy fuck, this is a dumpster fire video. Trust me, I am not gonna be going this route on the 15th. I'm just saying. I put this as a challenge to myself walking home from putting my kid on the bus. Steelman the ontological argument. So we have this understanding that optimal exists across all possible worlds. Oh wait, did I just sneak in S5 on top of S4? I think maybe I did. Right? Therefore, this is true across all possible worlds. And that there must, by definition of the word optimal, be an optimal optimization. And that this is true across all possible worlds. And see, this is right here at the fucking 20-minute mark. Boom. This is where I drop Buddhism on you. Because that's exactly what's going on. There is an optimization across all optimal worlds. It just isn't God. Well, it is. But it isn't. Oh, bait and switch. Bait and switch. Maybe this is going to be Buddhism 102. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, the idea here is, are you capable of defining for yourself, at least in your own mind, the concept of an optimal state of affairs? Something that to you, to your mind, to your imagination, would have to be the most perfect way that things could exist. Now, some smart people will say no. Just too many variables. I couldn't really imagine that. But some people will say, yeah, sure, of course. It's me being happy all the time forever and never. Oh, where did heaven come from? I have no idea. But probably the same place hell did. From the hand of Almighty God. Right? But you imagine this in your mind. And then you look out at the world that you inhabit. And you say, well, obviously, this isn't that. But for that, meaning the optimal state of affairs, the optimal of all possible worlds, for that to be that, it would have to be, or at least encompass, at least contain within itself, this world. Because if it didn't, it would be lacking something. And by definition, the optimal state of affairs cannot lack anything. At least any perfection. I fucking tried. I tried. And honestly, that's really kind of, and I'd say Steelman, oh, you strawmanned it. Actually, I don't think I did. I just think it's a very weak argument. It's all semantics, even in the modal form. But yeah, I'm just trying to do those like fucking, like, what is that? Like, I'm jumping rope right now, intellectually. I'm getting prepared. Because I'm not taking, this is something I take very seriously, man. This is something I take very seriously, meaning the 15th. I take this very, very seriously. I mean, I don't even fucking know what the fuck to say at this point. It's still unreal to me. I think about this. I know Aaron Ra, he doesn't, I'm sorry, Aaron Ra, to that one fucker. Yeah, sometimes, whatever. Go lick a dick. Is giving no thought to this at all. I know he isn't. But to me, I'm not saying this is everything I think about. It certainly isn't. Because when I put this phone down, I'm going to be thinking about something else. But trust me, this is something, it's an honor, it's a privilege. I already know I'm going to get ganged up on. And that's just with Arn Ra being there. Because this dude comes full double-fisted. Now, actually, I think it's going to go better than most people think it will. From the civility perspective. At least, well, hey, I know I can. I know I can hold up my end of that. But I think that the audience... the subscriber base, of course, you put a name like Arn Ra on the, it's a debate between Arn Ra. The way they promoted it, when they promoted it, was Arn Ra is going to be debating, and they full props. They shout me out on the November lineup. They were like, Jason King, who is somehow an atheist who believes in creation. And I actually like the way that Kyle, I didn't fuck it up this time. Sorry for all them other times, man. I was just trying to distinguish you from Kalinsky. But I was like, yeah, that's probably about the best formulation that you could give it. Because when I was talking to him privately, he had mentioned creator and architect, which I made a Matrix joke, and he didn't laugh, which kind of pissed me off that he didn't laugh at my Matrix joke about the architect. But whatever. I know he was all business at that point. And sometimes I try a little bit of levity, you know. I try to keep things loose. And that's the way I'm going to try to go into this. And yeah, just keep my mind sharp. Try to start defending the dumbest shit I can think of. Not because this is dumb or that I think is dumb at all. As a matter of fact, I am not going to be arguing, at least within the constraints of what I know the debate is as of this point. I am not going to be going in there with sophistry. In other words, I'm going to be arguing a position that I actually do hold. So, yeah, so I know I'm going to get ganged up on, and like I say, I welcome all challengers. I know the super chats, because they'll get 5 minutes each, introduce yourself, what are you talking about, why are you here, boom, then it's one-on-one, free flow, moderation just to stop people from talking over each other if somebody decides to do that. Unless there's a lag, I'm not going to be doing it. And then there's super chat, where it's like questions from the audience. So, and then I was told that Mr. Steve had a problem with something I said in my video on the mathematical proof for the existence of God, which, again, as I say, I do believe in that video. That represents a position that I hold. Is it as rigorous as it could be? Probably not. If there's a fundamental flaw in my argumentation, which basically relies on two things, A being quantum mechanics being what it is, and B being the nature of transcendental numbers. Now, I know there was a part where I said, well, that means all numbers are transcendental and 0.999 equals 1. And I look, I understand all the math behind that. If that's your beef, fucking, you didn't get what I was really saying. I mean, the cousin of zero. I think we all know what's going on in math. Insofar as there are, and math is built on levels of certitude. And some of the stuff, like, for example, one of the reasons the Riemann hypothesis has not yet been either proven nor disproven. Disproven is just going to take a strong enough computer. Proven is going to be thinking outside the box. Now, I believe the hypothesis is true, and I believe I know why it's true. I just can't formulate it. It has to do with the fact that what we're talking about is square roots, and the real part always equaling 1/2 when you're talking about an exponent basically means square root. So it's kind of like a definite, but I'm not going to get in any of that shit. those are all just like little theories of mine that I hold to. Obviously, I haven't claimed the $1 million prize for the millennium problems, or one of them even, but I do have strong reasons for believing that it's true. But the way in which that problem is presented via something called analytic continuation, this is an extrapolation of what math is fundamentally. It's an extrapolation on that, which see my video on my defense of mathematical realism, sort of. Because I think the further out you get is when you start hypothesizing a little bit about the way in which these objects of mathematics interact with each other. But I've said enough. I've done my time for the day.